Everyone talks about how we can launch a startup with NOCODE, but the real question is it really adapted for my project? You will always find someone who will say yes, because behind NOCODE, you can put thousands of tools. Some are good, others not. Some can be adapted, others not. In today's episode, I'm going to help you decide if you should consider NOCODE specifically for your project. Hi, I'm Amaury, founder and CEO at My CTO Friend, where founders come to learn how to build their tech startup. With this Startup Snack series available on both podcast and YouTube, we want to share the essential to make it easier for you to build your tech startup. Many years ago, I developed my own marketplace, my own startup. It was back in 2012 and 13. We did everything ourselves. We coded everything ourselves. And I was pretty proud of what we did, especially because it took us more than a year to develop our marketplace. Then one day I went to a networking event and I met a young entrepreneur who was just graduated with an MBA. I talked about my marketplace, what I did, the payment things, etc., everything we developed so far. And he just replied, okay, yeah, I see. I did pretty much the same. So I was surprised because he wasn't technical. He was certainly a smart business profile for sure, but still, it took me more than a year to develop my marketplace. At that time, it was the beginning of the no-code movement, and I was actually shocked to discover that this young entrepreneur has done pretty much the same thing as what we did in less than 2 months. Above all, without any technical background. And the result was pretty much the same. It was more or less beautiful design, a very nice website, in fact. So that's at that moment that I really discovered the power of no-code. And since then, I've tried to guide people to use it when it was possible. So if you would ask, is there a solution in no-code for X, Y, or Z? Everyone would answer yes, of course, because behind no-code, you can do everything with no-code. And there is always a solution, but is it the most relevant solution? Not always. So before to get started, let's clarify first what is no-code. It's the ability to create an application or a website without code. The more advanced tools everyone talks about are usually Bubble, Adalo, GlideApp, AppGyver, etc. And these are what we call visual programming tools. We also use connectors like Zapier to connect the dots between tools and interactions and maybe connecting information from APIs as example. But in fact, we could consider any existing software as a no-code solution. Let's see. Let's take WordPress, for example. I personally don't really like WordPress, but we can consider that it is a no-code solution. Same thing with e-commerce website or the classical website tools like Webflow or Wix as example. In other words, any existing software easy to deploy and which doesn't require to code can be considered as a no-code solution. So with today's episode, what I really want is to help you define if it is relevant for you to build a solution based on another solution. And if yes, which type of solution should you look for? But before to dive into it, let's talk about the 3 cases in which no-code might not be relevant. First, any project that is health related. If you do not control the backend side of your application, it is not possible to store personal information that are regulated. Same thing with the banking field. And I'm pretty sure there are other regulated industries that require to follow some specific security requirements. So double check that before anything else. Second point, the type of project that can be relevant to develop in no-code are projects that do not require a core technology. I am thinking of, as example, virtual reality, augmented reality, or also hardware stuff like Bluetooth connections, etc. There are a couple of connections and a couple of solutions, but as of today, it makes the entire thing a bit more complex, and then the no-code benefits can be reduced if you use it with core technologies. You can always Google search for virtual reality no-code app as example, or whatever technology you need, and you will see what exists and if it is relevant or not. And the last type of project that might not be adapted to no-code solution are projects that are absolutely sure to work. So by definition, non-disruptive project who do not need to evolve over time. So that's the case if you have a business for many years, if you have thousands of clients already, or maybe a large audience, and if you really master your industry and know word by word what your customers want, then maybe passing through a no-code technology is not relevant. The main point of using no-code is to be able to adapt things very easily, to save time on development. But if you want a very high standard, high quality and long-term product that is not going to evolve that much over the years, then maybe a classical agency will do the job. Of course, every project is unique and you can also check what a no-code agency would offer you in that situation. These were the 3 cases where no-code might not be relevant. That being said, now that we define what type of projects, let's define now, what type of tools that can be used and that can be adapted to your project. And the answer of that question will always depend on one thing. How much time do you have? Do you have time to learn a no-code tool? Are you willing to learn it? And are you willing to, or do you prefer basically to delegate the development? Because there is a big difference between spending several months learning a tool to create your own solution, and that's honestly what's required, and delegating the development of your solution. So if you have plenty of time, yes, jump into a no-code bootcamp, become a master at Bubble, Adalo, AppGaver, etc. But if you don't have that much time, then just consider the no-code tools like any other software languages and go for the one that is the most used. So you will be able to find freelancers and agencies easily to build and modify your solution. And remember to try to never be dependent on anyone. I mean, not even myself. That's what I repeat all the time to my clients. Second point, do you accept to redevelop your solution from scratch? Well, this question is a bit biased because you should. Although you could throw away your first version, you never really restart from scratch. Because the best benefit of using no-code is to test things, to test what works and what doesn't for your user. So depending on the no-code tool you will use and how much you master that tool, you will need to restart development sooner or later. Either because the tool you use is limited or because you might have done things the wrong way. Nowadays, most of no-code tools are strong and powerful enough to scale. But it's like real code. If you don't structure things the right way, if you do not follow the tool's best practices, it's going to become a nightmare on the long term. It's like anything in life, in fact, anything you learn. The first time you try something new, usually you are pretty bad at it. But it's only after many tries that you can do great things. That's the same with no-code. So if you wanted to learn to do everything by yourself, just be willing to redo things. Next, if you want to save time, before considering launching any development, and I mean code or no code, do some research and search for any SaaS solution that can do what you are looking for. If you want to build an e-learning platform, as example, I bet there are better solutions ready to use, less complex than real no-code development and visual programming stuff. Maybe you will not be able to customize everything, of course, but how much time will you save with just a little tool with like 20 or 30 bucks a month? You will save a bunch of time. And that's exactly the same thing with e-commerce. There is no point to build an e-commerce platform with fully customizable no-code tools. In fact, there are e-commerce platforms that we can consider as no-code that allow you to launch an e-commerce website just in a couple of hours. So just go for it if that's your project. Check Shopify as example, and even basic tools like Wix or Webflow that can do the job. But SaaS solutions are not the only shortcuts. Search also for app templates that looks like what you want to build. And it includes code and no-code app. If you build something from scratch in code or no code, at some point you will need to improve it. And it's going to be quite complex in the end anyway. So you will need to have a certain expertise to improve your solution on the long term. So if you can save and if you can find right now a specific template ready to use, no matter the technology. It could be a code, it could be a WordPress plugin, it could be an app template bought on the Envato marketplace as example. Then most of the time, the opportunity to have that template, to have that application just ready that really looks like what you want to build, will guide you towards the best solution for you. I mean, the most relevant for your project, no matter the language, the technology that is behind. Maybe with just a few $100s, you can have what you are looking for. That's much better than just paying a developer for months or weeks to reinvent the wheel. But pay attention. Always check the quality of the template. Not all the templates are equals and well designed and well structured. That's also why it's good to consider open source solutions. So WordPress, as example, is an open source solution. And in some cases, it can do some good job. Usually, using an open source solution is a great opportunity to have between 80 to 90% of your product ready. I don't really know if we should consider that as a code or no code, but definitely I recommend you to check what exists in your field. Again, there are solutions for everything, e-commerce, marketplace, etc. You can, as example, Google open source and Uber template if you want to create an application that looks like Uber. I'm pretty sure you're going to find either an open source template or maybe another template that you can buy. Obviously, if you have to finish 10 to 20% of the solution with customized code, then yes, technically speaking, it's not really no code, as you will have to pass through real development. But if your developer do it right, you might end up with a more long-term solution than a real fully solution developed in no code. And above all, that might be a solution that you will fully own and you can adapt without any limits. So before to come to the conclusion, let's talk about the 3 types of no-code tools that you can consider. First, you have the real no-code development. We talk about visual programming. We can talk about Bubble, AppGyver, etc. and there are others. Long-term, they are really long-term if you do things right in those tools. Now you also have mid-term and short-term solutions. I think about Glide App and Adado as example, which can allow you to create a quick application in a couple of hours. And you also have dedicated solutions to a specific need. CMS, e-commerce, marketplace, e-learning platforms. They are a good fit for standard needs. So in conclusion, no-code is not only a matter of black and white decision. I use both real applications that interact with no-code tools and the other way, no-code solutions where I often put few lines of code to do something out of the box. Remember that, like anything in life, learning new skills take time. And I've tested tons of no-code solutions, Bubble, Adalo, Glide, AppGyver, etc. and I love them, honestly. But most of the time, you spend more time understanding how the tools work than really building your product. With always that little hesitation in mind. Am I going to be able to do what I really want with that tool? Sometimes you can spend more time tweaking a no-code tool than actually just writing the 10 lines of code that it requires. In a nutshell, no-code tools are not recommended for every project and not for regulated industries like bank and health, not for projects that are too technical or non-innovative and non-evolutive projects. And always remember to consider all your options. Real no-code developments, visual programming, existing templates, and SaaS and open source solutions. And above all, get some help to make the right decision, to choose the right tool, no matter the technology, to build things the right way. If you enjoy learning with us and want to see more, consider subscribing. Help us spread the word by hitting the like button and by sharing with your entrepreneur friends. If you have any question and want to suggest a topic, feel free to comment down below, and you can also check out our website to learn more about our coaching program and how you can join.